I went to my first Lolita meetup in 2011 with a friend from high school who also had an interest in the fashion, and this was our first time entering this space in person and meeting other Lolitas after we had watched it from afar online. I didn't know anyone else besides the friend I came with. I was ready to meet local vendors, local Lolitas, and upon entering the space, I was pretty quickly told, we don't like Dolldelight. So what did I do? Did I go to the booth and assess it for myself, ask inquiring questions about it, look for more information, get more opinions, make decisions for myself? No. I just went along with it like the weak-willed 21-year-old that I was. And I've learned so much since this. I want to go over the Dolldelight story because I think it demonstrates behaviors that I see all too often in the Lolita community and other subcultures that are mildly toxic and unwarranted. As well, I think it is really cool to remember this brand and movement that was happening sometimes in the Lolita community, sometimes parallel to the Lolita community, and what that was like. So what was Dolldelight? Who was behind it? And why were they so hated in the Lolita community? Dolldelight was a small indie clothing line created by Cyril Lumboy, a designer from the Philippines who moved to the United States, and when the brand was active, it was running out of California. By the time I entered the Lolita community, Dolldelight was already branding itself as something outside of Lolita fashion. Lolitas were so strict about rules during this time, and Japanese brands reigned supreme. I feel like everyone was really trying to look like 3 different looks, and that's it. There was so much pressure to fit into Lolita and for things to be qualified as Lolita or not Lolita, and there was so much argument and stress and pressure around this, and indie brands at this time were nowhere near what they are today, and they were not as widely accepted in a way. A lot of people would constantly ask and worry that their indie brand items would not be considered Lolita. I feel like a lot of people enter Lolita fashion thinking that they've discovered their own personal style because they like it, they like what they're wearing, but then what they end up doing is just mirroring what brands release. And they don't actually develop their personal style within Lolita fashion. And I am only starting to really grasp this, and I've been slowly over the years interpreting and switching things out in my style to kind of tweak it and make it my own. And I feel like this mentality was just not even there in the 2010s, and I hope that this is the mentality that we are moving forward with. And I think that Dolldelight would have been much more widely accepted now than it was then. It is evident in interviews that Dolldelight's designer did have a strong passion for Lolita and was heavily influenced by it, even at some point referring to her brand as being Lolita, but then moving away from that to create her own unique genre of doll-inspired clothing. I feel like this change unfortunately did not expand her demographic, but more so limited it, because now you're not just making products for Lolitas, you are also creating your own subculture. You have to not just make products for an audience, you have to build the audience as well. The living doll term and doll terms were thrown around a lot, but from what I can tell from Cyril and Dolldelight is that they use the term dolls to refer to the genre of the clothing style that they were making, as well as the people wearing it. So her models were referred to as dolls, and that's kind of it. It was just like a way to brand themselves.
Dolldelight dolls were not promoting themselves as living dolls, a cosplay or a roleplay. Just people wearing fashion they referred to as doll-like.
The living doll movement of the 2010s deserves a whole video on its own with a great deal more research. But what I can tell you is that from the Lolita community, from the J-fashion perspective at the time, people did not want to be called dolls. They did not want to be called living dolls. And a large reason for this was the way that mainstream media was trying to capitalize on alternative fashion wearers at the time by presenting them in the most shock value way possible, which often meant that they would make generalized, sweeping statements about people and often associate them with kink. Media assumed that they would get more attention by presenting people as weird or connecting them with dollification, rather than just saying, hey, this is a person who dresses this way. They had to be othered, they had to be weird. It's really interesting now too, because people who identified as living dolls at the time have now come forward and said that, yeah, I was just using that, like, to gain popularity. And it's like, if we could have just known that at the time rather than taking it so seriously, I feel like we would have saved a lot of headaches. But again, that's a topic for another day. I feel like choosing to identify as a Dolldelight doll put you in this weird space where you almost felt like you had to refuse being a Lolita. And that makes it difficult to be involved with the brand, to be a fan of the brand, because so many people wanted to feel like they were part of the Lolita community, which at the time was super elitist and difficult already, and they hated the term doll, so they felt like they had to choose one or the other, whereas really they could have just done both. I understand that it's very difficult to be a Lolita-specific brand because the audience is small and niche. So I've seen many brands expand into making clothing pieces that can be advertised to a larger audience, can be used in more ways. However, I don't feel that that is why Dolldelight called themselves a dolly fashion. And this is purely my own speculation, just from looking from the outside in. This is all just my opinion and my thought. But I feel that Dolldelight was heavily judged by the Lolita community, and that's sort of why they steered away from calling themselves Lolita fashion. I heard so often people just giving these blanket statements saying like, Dolldelight isn't Lolita, this isn't Lolita, this piece is not Lolita. But like, why not? It is, it looks like it. It really does fit the silhouette. It has similar design styles. I really think that this is due to the mentality of this era, and it's not actually that serious. It does qualify as Lolita, in my opinion. Look at it. Just look at it. How is this not Lolita? Sure, there were some pieces that were shorter and slightly different, but Lolita brands do the same thing. They release pieces that are outside of the normal silhouette, and we still consider them Lolita fashion. It's possible for Lolita brands to carry pieces that are not traditionally Lolita. Lolitas did not want to be called dolls, but then they also didn't want Dolldelight to call her style Lolita. Oh my god. It's just... Who cares? Who cares? This chaos in terminology created almost a divide between Lolitas and Dolldelight dolls. And then there was the TV show.
This video does not have a sponsor, but you can help my channel by shopping with 42 Lolita and or Flower Nose using my affiliate codes. I have even more videos on Patreon, and you can also help just by watching my other videos and sharing them. Thanks so much for your support.
How Dolldelight came into my conscious and wanting to make a video of it was I wanted to react to the series. But all I've been able to watch is a series of short clips that's on YouTube, which I will link in the description. You can get a good sense of the show just from this playlist, but of course, we can't see all of it. It looks like this series took place following the Dolldelight crew through different events and conventions at the time and hosting fashion shows and everything that went into that. I think this series would be really cool for Lolitas who joined the fashion in the 2020s to see what events and spaces were like in the 2010s. I also think that it seems like a really nostalgic series. For me, I love to watch this kind of thing when I'm feeling burnt out from J fashion. Seeing this era just really comforts me in it and reminds me all the things that I like about it. But I often wonder, who was this series made for? Like, what was the demographic that they had in mind for this series, because when it was airing, Lolitas did not like it. They were very much against it because of the name, which is hypocritical if you think about it, because Lolitas are often mistaken for something else due to the name Lolita, and then Dolldelight and dolls that were involved with Dolldelight were mistaken for something else and judged based off of a name. It seems like it was geared towards Lolitas or people who would have an interest in Lolita fashion type things, because they were still going to spaces where Lolitas were. They were doing the same sorts of things that Lolitas were. Many of the participants in the show also identified as Lolitas or having an interest in the style. I also remember seeing criticisms of the time, viewers saying that it was like really mean or too dramatic. But I think that viewers of reality television in 2015 had less media literacy than we do now. I hope that people get it at this point. Yes, reality TV isn't scripted, but it is heavily produced, and they have to show you some sort of story. They have to cast people as different characters in order to make it interesting. So it's not real, but it's a genre. So yes, the drama is going to be a little bit staged, it's going to be a little bit forced, but that's what's making it interesting. That's what's giving it a storyline. And we can know that people are being produced, they're being edited, and it doesn't reflect who they are as an overall person. It's just the character, the story that they're telling in this series. I interviewed people who were a part of different Southern California Lolita communities during this time and asked, why did everyone hate Dolldelight? Did you hate Dolldelight? And almost unanimously, everyone said no. They didn't actually hate Cyril or Dolldelight. They just didn't like the designs and they thought that she was mean. I received a lot of answers similar to how I feel, that people felt that they never even got a chance to know Cyril or Dolldelight because they just didn't give them a chance, so they don't really know, they're unfamiliar. They just sort of hushed them out. I haven't been able to find concrete evidence of Cyril being mean to people or mean actions. And you can see in some of the clips that she's less expressive and people make comments about her coming off as cold or distant. And to me, seeing this, it feels like maybe she's neurodivergent. I am not trying to label her, but I just know that nowadays we know a lot more about social cues and being neurodivergent and what that looks like and what that is, whereas we did not have general knowledge about what socializing is like for different people. And so we would write off people who communicate differently as just being mean or rude when they really aren't. I also think that we're not taking into account that English is her second language, and also maybe social norms and cultures vary and are different in the Philippines than in Southern California. So I don't think it's fair to just write her off as being mean for being cold. It's possible that she is mean. I don't know. But it also could be possible that she isn't mean. She just operates in a different way that we didn't understand at the time. No one I spoke to could give specific incidents of Cyril being mean, and I even looked online to see older posts that she had made during this time, and I couldn't find anything heinous. There was a certain air of like seriousness and judgment and critique around different posts that she had made, but I feel like this energy was quite normal for the time. I feel like we took things way too seriously. I'm sure if you look back at my live journal posts, there are similar types of comments, and I just know that even on Tumblr, when I was writing advice, I was like so narrow-minded about what the style needed to look like and what the style should be, that there's so many things that I do now that I would have considered like not Lolita or Ida or bad. I think that a lot of these comments are really a reflection of the community at the time. Plus, hurt people hurt people. A lot of people were perpetuating this type of behavior because others were putting those expectations onto themselves. So then they were giving themselves these expectations, and then you're continuing it by putting it on someone else and trying to control what they're doing because you feel like you've been controlled and this is the way and this is how you have to do Lolita. The 2000s and the 2010s were a nightmare, truly. I often forget how strict and how rigid people were. The abhorrent things that I had to read for this video, for this research, really made me understand why Cyril would have walls around herself and why she might come off distant. Because it's a lot to deal with, and going into these spaces knowing that people are thinking this way about you would just be so rough. Obviously, I can relate as a content creator. I've been there in the past, and I am so glad that we are moving forward from this era. I think that we should reflect how we treated people and the Lolita community in the 2010s so that we can continue to grow moving forward. And maybe there's some of you who joined later on and had no idea that any of these things were happening, and it's important to acknowledge and learn about so that we don't repeat history. Maybe some people would argue that Dolldelight owes the Lolita community an apology because she misrepresented the fashion and used the wrong terminology, but I think that the community owes her an apology for making her alienated. I can't speak on behalf of what she actually felt, but just from observing everything that she dealt with, I would feel alienated, and I know that I contributed to that alienation by not giving her a chance at the time, by not looking into her brand, by not paying attention to it. And I feel stupid. I feel really stupid. When I walked into that first meetup, I should listen to what people say, but I should just hold it in my head and make decisions for myself, assess the surroundings, take it all in, talk to everyone, give everyone the same chance. If there's someone in your community who's like so dangerous, so negative, so hateful, so bad that you feel like you should be warning others to not engage with them, that's something that you should be bringing up to your moderators, who you should see like maybe they shouldn't be at events, maybe they shouldn't be involved. It's not everyone's responsibility to just like alienate people. Trust me, I've been burned by people, and there are people who I will not let back into my life, but I would never turn anyone against them. I might give them my experiences and say, hey, this is what happened to me, as long as you respect my choice not to be friendly to this person, not to interact with them. I respect your choice if you decide to, because maybe the person has changed, maybe they've grown, and maybe that person will have a totally different experience than you had. It takes two in order to end this type of nasty behavior, to both not be the person controlling and alienating others, and to be the person to stick up for yourself and respect others and make your own decisions about it. When I was first looking into making a video about this, I did speak with former Dolldelight models as well as Cyril herself, the designer, and it seems like most of them have moved on from this time in their life. They have gone on to other ventures, so I please ask that you do not bother any of them, don't give them a hard time, and only consume the old Dolldelight content that exists, and respect Cyril's choice to have this brand on hiatus. Just look back at older content and designs and be more willing to welcome her if she decides to come back.
Welcome to Kuma Corner, where I, Rilla Kuma, go over the point of today's video. Laura wanted to share this piece of Lolita history by exploring the brand Dolldelight and reflect on how her younger self allowed people to quickly sway her against giving someone the opportunity to get to know them. I hope you understand and enjoyed the video.